I stared at my phone screen in complete disbelief, reading the credit card statement that just arrived in my email. $119,000. My hand started shaking as I scrolled through charge after charge from luxury Parisian hotels, first-class flights, designer boutiques, and exclusive restaurants. All authorized with my card. All while I was working 60-hour weeks trying to save for a house down payment. The worst part? I had never been to Paris in my life. Someone had been living like royalty on my dime, and I was about to find out exactly who. My first instinct was to call my credit card company immediately. This had to be some kind of massive fraud. I mean, who spends $119,000 in 2 weeks? As I waited on hold, listening to that annoying elevator music, my mind raced through possibilities. Maybe someone had skimmed my card information at a restaurant. Maybe there was a data breach at some store I had shopped at recently. While waiting, I mindlessly picked up my phone and started scrolling through Instagram to distract myself from the panic building in my chest. That's when I saw it. My 25-year-old sister, Emma's, latest post from the Eiffel Tower. She was holding a glass of champagne that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget, wearing what looked like a brand new designer dress. The caption read, "Living my best life in the city of light. Dreams really do come true." My stomach dropped. I quickly scrolled through her recent posts. There she was at the Four Seasons Hotel George V, posing in what was clearly the most expensive suite they offered. Another photo showed her at some fancy restaurant with a table full of dishes I couldn't even pronounce. Then there was one of her shopping on the Champs-Élysées with bags from Chanel, Louis Vuitton, and Hermes. I hung up on the credit card company without even speaking to anyone. My hands were trembling as I looked at the dates on Emma's posts. They matched perfectly with the charges on my statement. The luxury hotel booking started exactly when her first Paris photo was posted. The designer shopping sprees lined up with the boutique charges on my card. I called Emma directly, but it went straight to voicemail. Her Instagram story was still updating in real time. She was at the Louvre now, holding another glass of expensive champagne, and posing with 3 friends I didn't recognize. The caption read, "Private after-hours tour with my girls. Sometimes you have to treat yourself." That's when it really hit me. I started doing the math in my head. Luxury hotel for 2 weeks, first-class flights for Emma, plus 3 friends, private tours, Michelin-starred restaurants every night, shopping sprees at the most expensive stores in Paris. My savings account had exactly $43,000 in it. Money I had been carefully putting aside for 3 years to buy my first house. But the charges on my credit card were way beyond my credit limit. Someone had to have called and authorized an increase. Someone who knew my personal information, my social security number, my mother's maiden name. I called my parents' house with my heart pounding. My mother Patricia answered on the second ring, and I could immediately hear the nervousness in her voice. "Oh, Dexter, honey. How are you doing? How's work going?" "Mom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Of course, sweetheart. What's wrong? You sound upset." "Did you or Dad give Emma permission to use my credit card?" There was a long silence. Too long. Then I heard her take a shaky breath. "Well, honey, we thought you knew. Emma said you had agreed to help her with a small graduation trip to celebrate finishing college. We thought it was so sweet of you to do that for your sister." "A small trip, Mom? She's charged $119,000 to my card." "Oh my God, that can't be right. We thought it would just be maybe $15,000 at most. Emma said you told her she could use it for a nice vacation to celebrate her degree." I could hear my mother starting to cry on the other end of the phone. "Dexter, I'm so sorry. Emma told us you had already discussed this with her. She said you wanted to surprise her with this trip as a belated graduation gift because you felt bad about missing her graduation ceremony for that work conference. She showed us text messages that she said were from you, approving the whole thing." That's when the real bombshell dropped. Emma hadn't just manipulated me. She had manipulated our parents into believing I had already agreed to this insane expense. She had orchestrated this entire elaborate lie, involving our whole family in her deception. "Mom, I never agreed to anything like this. I've never even talked to Emma about a trip to Paris. Those text messages were fake." The sound of my mother's sobbing on the other end of the phone broke my heart. She and my father had been completely played by Emma's lies, just like I had been. but the damage was already done, and I was the one stuck with a debt that would destroy my financial future. I drove straight to my parents' house in suburban Cleveland, my mind racing with anger and disbelief. How could Emma do this to me? How could my parents not question spending that kind of money without talking to me first? When I walked through the front door, my father, Robert, was sitting at the kitchen table with papers spread out in front of him. He looked up at me with a mixture of guilt and defensiveness. "Before you say anything, son, you need to understand that Emma has been planning this trip for 8 months. She showed us a detailed itinerary, private tours she had researched, special experiences she wanted to have. She made it sound like this was something you had already discussed and approved." My mother appeared from the living room, her eyes red from crying. She sat down next to my father and pushed a folder toward me. "Look, Dexter. Emma put together this whole presentation for us. She said you wanted her to have the trip of a lifetime because you felt guilty about always being the favored child." I opened the folder and couldn't believe what I was seeing. Emma had created a professional-looking travel itinerary with day-by-day plans, restaurant reservations, shopping schedules, and private tour bookings. Everything was meticulously planned and incredibly expensive. "Dad, this still doesn't explain how she was able to charge over $100,000 to my card." That's when my father's face turned pale. He pulled out another stack of papers from a different folder. "Son, I need to tell you something else. Emma convinced us that this amount was normal for a luxury European vacation for 4 people. She said, with your software engineering job, you could easily afford it. When she needed additional money beyond your credit limit, I provided my own credit card as backup." "What do you mean, backup?" "My card has $38,000 in charges from this trip. Emma said you and she had worked out that I would help cover some of the expenses as my contribution to her graduation celebration." I felt like the room was spinning. My parents had been so thoroughly manipulated that they had gone into debt themselves to fund Emma's fraudulent vacation. "And that's not all," my mother said quietly. "We took out a second mortgage on the house last month to make sure we could cover our portion of the trip expenses." "You mortgaged your house for this?" "Emma convinced us that this was normal for families who support each other. She said successful siblings always help pay for major life experiences, and that you had told her this was important to you. She made us feel like we would be letting both of you down if we didn't help make this happen." My father pulled out his phone and showed me a series of text messages from Emma. In them, she claimed that I had already approved everything and was excited to give her this amazing gift. She had even sent screenshots of what appeared to be text conversations between her and me, discussing the trip details. "I never sent those messages, Dad. I've never even talked to Emma about Paris." That's when my father's expression changed from guilt to anger. "Are you saying Emma lied to us? That she manipulated us into going into debt for a trip you never approved?" "That's exactly what I'm saying." My mother started crying again, but this time, it was different. These weren't tears of guilt. These were tears of realization that they had been completely deceived by their own daughter. "Dexter, Emma has been asking us for money for years. Car payments, rent assistance, credit card help. Over the past 3 years, we've given her almost $50,000 in financial support. Every time, she promised it was the last time, and every time, she came back with another emergency." My father nodded grimly. "She always had a reason. A medical bill, a car repair, unexpected expenses. And every time she asked for help, she would threaten to cut us out of her life if we didn't support her." I was starting to see a pattern of manipulation that went far beyond just this Paris trip. Emma had been financially exploiting our parents for years, and now she had escalated to identity theft and fraud. That's when my mother showed me something that made my blood run cold. She handed me a folder with credit card authorization forms, supposedly signed by me, approving the credit limit increase and authorizing Emma to use my card. "Emma brought these to us last month. She said you had signed them but wanted us to hold on to them for safekeeping." I looked at the signature on the forms. It was clearly fake, a poor attempt at copying my handwriting, but my parents hadn't questioned it, because they trusted Emma completely. Just then, the phone rang. My mother answered it, and I could hear Emma's voice on the other end, tinny and distant. "Mom, I just wanted to check in and see how everyone is doing back home." My mother looked at me with wide eyes. "Emma, honey, Dexter is here, and we need to talk to you about the credit card charges." "Oh, perfect. Put me on speaker." I can't wait to tell Dexter how amazing this trip has been." What I didn't realize was that Emma had been listening to our entire conversation through the phone call. She had heard everything we had discussed about the fake signatures, the second mortgage, and my parents' growing realization that they had been deceived. She was about to take her manipulation to an even more disturbing level. "Dexter, I'm so glad Mom called you. I was just telling my friends how generous you're being with this amazing graduation gift." Her voice was bright and cheerful, but I could hear something calculated underneath it. "Emma, cut the act. I know you forged my signature on those authorization forms. I know you've been using my credit card without permission. And I know you lied to Mom and Dad about me approving this trip." There was a pause, and when Emma spoke again, her tone had completely changed. "Wow, Dexter. Just wow. I can't believe you're being so selfish about this. Do you realize how hard I've worked to put this trip together? Do you know how much this means to me? This isn't about the trip, Emma. This is about fraud. You stole my identity and charged over $100,000 to my credit card without my knowledge or consent. Oh, please. You act like this is some huge amount of money. You're a software engineer. You make great money, and you never spend it on anything fun anyway. I thought you would be happy to do something nice for your sister for once in your life." I could feel my anger building, but I tried to stay calm. "Emma, how much money do you think I make?" "I don't know, like $200,000 a year or something? Tech jobs pay really well." "I make $75,000 a year, Emma. This trip you've planned costs more than I make in an entire year and a half." "Well, that's not my problem. Maybe you should have gotten a better job if you wanted to complain about money." My parents were listening to this exchange with growing horror. They were finally seeing the real Emma, not the manipulative victim she had pretended to be with them. "Emma, you need to come home right now and figure out how to pay back this money." She laughed. Actually laughed. "I'm not coming home, Dexter. In fact, I just booked another week at an even more expensive hotel. The George V was nice, but I found this amazing suite at La Bristol that's even better. And tomorrow, my friends and I are going on a private shopping tour with a personal stylist." She started sending photos to my mother's phone while she was talking. Pictures of her luxury suite, designer shopping bags worth thousands of dollars, expensive jewelry she had purchased. "Emma, this has to stop. You're destroying my financial future." "Oh, stop being so dramatic. You'll figure it out. You're good with money stuff. Besides, you've always been Mom and Dad's favorite anyway. They paid for your entire college education while I had to take out student loans. This is just evening the score a little bit." That hit my parents hard. I could see the guilt washing over their faces. "Honey," my mother said carefully, "we helped Dexter with college because he had better grades and got into a more expensive school. We offered to help you too, but you chose to go to a school closer to home and said you wanted the independence of paying your own way." "Right, sure. That's the story you tell yourselves. But Dexter has always been the golden child, and you know it." My father started to protest, but Emma cut him off. "Look, I don't want to argue about the past. The point is, I'm finally getting to do something amazing with my life, and I'm not going to let Dexter's selfishness ruin it." That's when she dropped the bombshell. "Besides, this isn't just some frivolous vacation. This is actually my baby moon." The room went silent. "What do you mean, baby moon?" my mother asked quietly. "I'm 3 months pregnant, Mom. Marcus and I are planning to get engaged here in Paris, and this trip is our way of celebrating before the baby comes. I didn't want to tell you over the phone, but since Dexter is making such a big deal about money, I guess you need to know the truth." My mother immediately burst into tears, but this time, they were tears of joy. "Oh my God, Emma, I'm going to be a grandmother. Robert, did you hear that? We're having a grandchild." Suddenly, the entire dynamic in the room shifted. My parents went from being upset about the fraud to being protective of their pregnant daughter and future grandchild. "Dexter," my father said firmly, "we need to figure this out. Emma is carrying our first grandchild. We can't let family drama affect her health or the baby's well-being. Dad, being pregnant doesn't give her the right to commit fraud." "It's not fraud if it's family," my mother said. "Families help each other out, especially during important times like this." Emma's voice on the phone became sweet and manipulative again. "I'm so glad you understand, Mom. Marcus and I were so worried about telling you about the pregnancy because we wanted everything to be perfect. This trip was supposed to be our way of celebrating our love and preparing for our future as a family. "Where is Marcus now, honey?" my mother asked. "Oh, he's out getting us some special champagne to celebrate. Well, sparkling cider for me, obviously." Something about that didn't sound right. In all the photos Emma had posted, I hadn't seen any sign of a boyfriend. It had just been her and 3 female friends. "Emma, if this is really a baby moon with Marcus, why are all your Instagram posts just with your friends?" There was a pause that lasted a little too long. Marcus doesn't like social media. He prefers to keep our relationship private. As we continued talking, I started listening more carefully to the background noise on Emma's end of the call. I could hear loud music, multiple female voices, and what sounded like a party atmosphere. It definitely didn't sound like a romantic baby moon with a boyfriend. Then Emma made a mistake. "Hold on. Let me ask Sarah if she wants to go to dinner tonight at this amazing restaurant I found." She pulled the phone away from her mouth, but not far enough. I could hear her clearly talking to someone. "Sarah, do you think that guy Marcus from the hotel bar wants to join us for dinner tonight? He was totally flirting with me earlier." When she came back on the phone, she had forgotten what she had been saying about Marcus being her boyfriend. "Sorry about that. My friend was asking about dinner plans." "Emma, who exactly is Marcus?" Another pause. "What do you mean?" "Marcus is my boyfriend, the father of my baby. We've been together for 8 months. Then why did I just hear you asking your friend if some guy named Marcus from a hotel bar wants to join you for dinner?" The line went quiet for a moment. Then Emma's voice came back, but now it was angry and defensive. "You know what, Dexter? You're so paranoid and negative. You're ruining what's supposed to be the happiest time of my life. Maybe Marcus is just a different Marcus. Maybe I have more than one friend named Marcus. Why do you have to make everything so complicated?" But, as she continued talking, more details started slipping out. She mentioned going to nightclubs with her friends, drinking expensive wine, and planning late-night shopping trips. None of these activities sounded like something a pregnant woman would be doing, especially not during a romantic baby moon. Finally, in her frustration and anger, Emma said something that revealed the truth. "Look, maybe I'm not actually pregnant yet, but I'm trying to get pregnant. And maybe Marcus isn't exactly my boyfriend yet, but he could be. The point is, I deserve to have nice things and amazing experiences, and I'm tired of always being the one who gets left out of everything." My parents' faces went pale. The manipulation was finally becoming clear to them. "Emma," my mother said quietly, "did you lie to us about being pregnant?" "I didn't lie. I might have exaggerated a little bit. But I could be pregnant. I want to be pregnant. And this trip is helping me figure out what I want for my future." The house went completely silent, except for the sound of Emma partying in the background of the phone call. My parents were finally seeing their daughter for who she really was, and it was breaking their hearts. After that devastating phone call, I drove home feeling completely overwhelmed. My sister had been lying about everything. My parents had been manipulated into debt, and I was stuck with financial charges that would destroy my future. I needed to understand the full scope of what Emma had done. I went straight to my computer and ordered credit reports from all 3 major credit bureaus. What I discovered was far worse than I had imagined. Emma hadn't just used my credit card for her Paris trip. She had been systematically stealing my identity for years. The credit reports showed 14 different store credit cards that had been opened in my name over the past 2 years. A Best Buy card with $8,500 charged on it. A Nordstrom card with $12,000. A Target card with $3,800. Cards from jewelry stores, electronics stores, clothing retailers, and luxury goods shops. Every single one of these accounts had been opened without my knowledge. Emma had been using my personal information, my social security number, my employment details, and my address to create a whole financial identity that she could exploit. But the most shocking discovery was a personal loan from an online lending company for $25,000 that had been taken out 6 months ago. According to the loan documents, I had supposedly applied for this money to consolidate debt and make home improvements. The loan had been approved based on my employment information and credit history, and Emma had been making minimum payments to keep me from noticing. I called the lending company immediately. "Hi, I need to speak to someone about a loan that was taken out in my name." I believe it may be fraudulent. After being transferred several times, I finally spoke to a representative who could access my account. According to our records, Mr. Williams, you applied for this loan online 6 months ago. The application included your employment information, salary details, and bank account numbers for direct deposit. I never applied for any loan. Can you tell me where the money was sent? The funds were deposited into a checking account, ending in 4789. I checked my bank records. That was indeed my checking account. Emma had somehow gotten access to my banking information and had been depositing the loan money into my own account, then withdrawing it for her personal use. Looking deeper into my bank statements, I found a pattern that made my stomach turn. Over the past year, Emma had been making small deposits into my checking account, usually for $50 or $100 at a time. I'd assumed these were payments for times I had covered her dinner bills or small expenses, but now I realized what she was really doing. Each small deposit had given her access to my account through mobile banking. She had been taking photos of my checks and using mobile deposit to access my account information. Every time I had written her a check for legitimate expenses, she had gained more information about my banking details. She had been planning this for a long time. This wasn't a spontaneous decision to use my credit card for a vacation. This was a calculated, long-term identity theft scheme that she had been building for years. My phone rang. It was Emma, calling from Paris again. She sounded drunk and angry. Dexter, I heard from Mom that you're checking your credit reports and making a big drama out of this. You need to just calm down and accept that this is happening. Emma, you've opened 14 credit cards in my name. You took out a $25,000 personal loan. You've been stealing my identity for years. I wasn't stealing anything. I was borrowing. I was always planning to pay everything back once I got my marketing career started. What marketing career? Mom said you've been unemployed for 7 months. I'm not unemployed. I'm between jobs. I'm being selective about my opportunities. Emma, you've been living off stolen credit and manipulating our parents while pretending to have a job. That's not being selective. That's being a criminal. She became vicious then, her voice slurring with alcohol and rage. You know what, Dexter? You're pathetic. You make decent money, you have no social life, you spend nothing on yourself, and you're still crying about money, like some kind of victim. I'm actually doing something fun and exciting with my life. With my money. Whatever. Money is just paper. Experiences are what matter. I'm creating memories and living my dreams while you're sitting at home obsessing over credit scores and bank statements. I could hear loud music and laughter in the background. Emma was clearly at some kind of party or nightclub, spending more of my money while talking to me about how I was the problem. Emma, you need to come home right now and face the consequences of what you've done. Actually, I have some news for you about that. I've decided to extend my trip another week, maybe 2 weeks. Paris is amazing, and I'm not ready to come back to boring old Cleveland yet. You can't keep spending my money. Watch me. I just booked a suite at the Ritz for next week, and tomorrow I'm going on a private helicopter tour of the French countryside. Oh, and I bought this gorgeous diamond necklace today that I know you're going to love seeing on your credit card statement. That's when she said something that chilled me to the bone. Besides, even if I come home, what are you going to do about it? All this debt is in your name. Your credit is ruined, your savings are gone, and your dream of buying a house is over. I've been doing some research, and I think I might just declare bankruptcy after this trip and start fresh somewhere else. What do you mean, start fresh? I mean, maybe I'll move to Europe permanently. Maybe I'll change my name and disappear. This whole identity thing is really liberating once you get the hang of it. The line started breaking up, but I could still hear her voice becoming more taunting. The best part is, all of this debt stays with you. I don't have any assets, I don't have a job, I don't have anything they can take from me. But you? You have everything to lose. I could hear her friends in the background, laughing and encouraging her as she spoke. Emma, you can't just disappear and leave me with all this debt. Actually, I can. I've been researching how to avoid extradition for financial crimes. And it turns out, it's not that hard if you know what you're doing. The call ended with the sound of Emma laughing and her friends cheering her on. I sat in my living room, staring at my phone, realizing that my sister wasn't just a manipulative family member who had made some bad choices. She was a calculating criminal who had been planning to destroy my life and disappear without consequences. The next morning, I drove to the police station with all of my documentation. I had printed out every credit report, every fraudulent account statement, every bank record showing unauthorized access. I had recordings of phone conversations with Emma, where she admitted to using my identity. I had photos of the forged signatures on the credit card authorization forms. Detective Sarah Martinez took my case and listened carefully as I explained everything that had happened. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, but a serious demeanor, and I could tell she had seen cases like this before. Mr. Williams, what your sister has done constitutes multiple federal crimes: identity theft, wire fraud, credit card fraud, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes. We're talking about potential prison time of 15 to 20 years. I just want my money back and my credit restored. I don't necessarily want to send my sister to prison. Detective Martinez shook her head. I understand that this is family, but you need to understand the severity of what's happened here. Your sister has stolen over $160,000 when you include all the credit cards and the personal loan. This isn't a family dispute anymore. This is a major financial crime. She explained that because Emma was currently in France, the case would require coordination with international law enforcement. The FBI would likely get involved because of the amount of money and the international nature of the fraud. We'll need to contact the credit card companies and banks to freeze all the accounts and begin the process of reversing the fraudulent charges. We'll also need to coordinate with French authorities to track your sister's location and activities. I called my parents from the police station to let them know what was happening. The conversation did not go well. Dexter, you can't be serious about this, my mother said immediately. Emma is your sister. Family doesn't call the police on family. Mom, Emma has committed serious crimes. She's stolen over $160,000 using my identity. But she's still your sister, and she's been struggling. Maybe she made some mistakes, but involving the police will just make everything worse. My father got on the phone, and his voice was cold and angry. Son, if you go through with this, you're going to destroy our family. Emma will go to prison. She'll have a criminal record for the rest of her life. Is that really what you want? Dad, Emma destroyed our family when she decided to commit fraud and manipulate all of us. I'm just trying to protect myself from financial ruin. We'll pay you back, my mother cried. We'll mortgage the house again. We'll use our retirement savings. We'll figure out a way to cover the money. Just please don't send your sister to prison. That's when they revealed something that broke my heart. Dexter, we need to tell you something about Emma, my father said quietly. This isn't the first time she's done something like this. What do you mean? Emma used your grandmother's credit card information after she died last year. She charged about $15,000 on it before we found out. We covered the debt and made her promise never to do anything like that again. My mother started crying, and before that, she stole money from your uncle's wallet at Christmas dinner. And she used my credit card to buy things online without asking. We've been covering for her mistakes for years because she always promised to do better. So you knew she was a thief, and you still gave her access to my financial information? We thought she had changed. She said she was in therapy. She promised us that the Paris trip was different because it was approved by you. I realized that my parents had been enabling Emma's criminal behavior for years. They had been covering up her crimes, making excuses for her actions, and protecting her from consequences. And now they were asking me to do the same thing. Mom, Dad, I love you both, but I can't let Emma destroy my life to protect her from the consequences of her choices. That's when things got ugly. If you do this, my father said, his voice shaking with anger, you are no longer our son. We will not have a child who sends his own sister to prison. Robert, my mother gasped. No, Patricia, he needs to understand. If Dexter goes through with pressing charges, he is choosing to destroy this family. Emma may have made mistakes, but Dexter is choosing to be vindictive and cruel. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My parents were more upset with me for reporting Emma's crimes than they were with Emma for committing them. Dad, Emma stole over $160,000 from me. She's been planning to disappear and leave me with all the debt. She's not the victim here. She's still your sister. And family protects family, even when they make mistakes. The conversation ended with my parents hanging up on me. Within an hour, I started getting phone calls from other family members. My Aunt Karen called me crying, begging me not to ruin Emma's life. My cousin Michael called me angry, saying I was being vindictive over money. My Uncle Steve called to tell me I was tearing the family apart for no good reason. Emma had gotten to all of them first. She had called everyone in our extended family and portrayed herself as the victim of my overreaction to a simple misunderstanding about money. She had twisted the story to make it sound like I was being cruel and unreasonable. But Detective Martinez called me that afternoon with news that changed everything. "Mr. Williams, there's something else you need to know about your sister's activities in Paris. We've been in contact with French authorities, and it turns out Emma's spending patterns have attracted attention from international financial crimes investigators." "What do you mean?" "Your sister's trip isn't just an expensive vacation. The amount of money she's spending and the pattern of her transactions match known money laundering operations. The FBI is taking over this case." That's when Detective Martinez revealed the most shocking part of the investigation. Emma's friends in Paris weren't college buddies. They were members of an organized crime network that specialized in identity theft and family manipulation schemes. Emma had been recruited through social media by professional fraud operators who had trained her in psychological manipulation techniques. "Mr. Williams, your sister is involved with people who do this for a living. They target families like yours, teach vulnerable people like Emma how to manipulate their relatives, and then take a cut of the stolen money. My parents had no idea what they were really protecting. Emma wasn't just their daughter who had made some bad choices. She was a criminal who had been working with other criminals to systematically destroy our family's financial security. But when I called to tell my parents about the FBI investigation, they still refused to believe that Emma was truly dangerous. The police are probably just trying to make this sound worse than it is," my mother said. "Emma is still our daughter, and we're not going to abandon her now." That's when my father revealed the final piece of the puzzle. "Dexter, there's something else you need to know. Emma has some information about our family that could be very damaging if it came out." "What kind of information?" "She knows about some mistakes I made with taxes a few years ago. Some deductions I claimed that weren't entirely legitimate. If Emma decides to report that information to the IRS, I could go to prison and lose my business." Emma had been blackmailing my parents. She had been threatening to destroy my father's small accounting business if they didn't support her financially. My parents weren't just enablers. They were victims of Emma's manipulation too. She also has some personal information about family members that could be embarrassing or damaging if it became public, my mother added quietly. Emma has always been good at remembering details about people's private lives. I finally understood why my parents had been so willing to mortgage their house and go into debt for Emma's trip. They weren't just trying to help their daughter. They were trying to protect themselves and other family members from Emma's threats and blackmail. My family was trapped in a web of manipulation and fear that Emma had been building for years. And now the FBI was involved, which meant everything was about to get much more complicated. 2 days later, Detective Martinez called me with news that completely changed everything I thought I knew about Emma's situation. "Mr. Williams, I need you to come down to the station immediately. We have FBI agent David Carson here, and there have been some major developments in your sister's case." When I arrived at the police station, Agent Carson was waiting with a thick file of documents spread across the conference table. He was a tall man in his 40s with a serious expression and the kind of presence that made you pay attention. "Mr. Williams, your sister's activities in Paris have attracted the attention of our International Financial Crimes Unit. What we've discovered is much larger than simple identity theft." He opened the file and showed me surveillance photos of Emma with people I had never seen before. "These individuals that your sister has been traveling with are not college friends, as she claimed. They are members of a sophisticated fraud network that operates across multiple countries. Emma was recruited into this organization 8 months ago through social media. The photos showed Emma at expensive restaurants and hotels, with well-dressed people who looked much older and more sophisticated than typical college friends. Agent Carson explained that these individuals were professional criminals who specialized in manipulating American families into funding overseas money laundering operations. Your sister's luxury trip is actually a training program. She's learning advanced techniques for identity theft, family manipulation, and international money laundering. The money she's spending isn't just stolen from you. It's being used to fund larger criminal operations. Agent Carson showed me records of payments from overseas accounts linked to known fraud networks. Emma had been receiving commission payments for successfully stealing large amounts of money from family members. Emma was paid $15,000 for every $50,000 she successfully stole from your family. Her pregnancy lie, her emotional manipulation tactics, her threats of suicide, even her blackmail of your parents, all of these were scripted techniques taught by professional fraud coaches. I felt sick to my stomach. Emma hadn't just betrayed our family out of selfishness or poor judgment. She had been trained by criminals to systematically destroy us for profit. But here's where things get more serious, Mr. Williams. French authorities have been monitoring this fraud network for months. They're planning to make arrests, but your sister's activities have accelerated their timeline. Agent Carson explained that Emma's social media posts had inadvertently exposed the entire operation. Her detailed documentation of the luxury spending had provided law enforcement with evidence of the money laundering scheme. Her phone calls with our family had been recorded and were being used to understand how the manipulation techniques worked. We have evidence that this network has targeted over 200 American families in the past year alone. The total amount of stolen money exceeds $50 million. My phone rang during the meeting. It was my mother, calling in a panic. "Dexter, FBI agents are at our house. They're asking questions about Emma and showing us documents about criminal organizations. What is going on?" Agent Carson took the phone from me. "Mrs. Williams, this is Agent Carson with the FBI. We need you and your husband to come down to our office immediately. You're not in trouble, but we need your help with a major international investigation." When my parents arrived at the FBI office an hour later, they looked terrified and confused. Agent Carson sat them down and carefully explained what Emma had really been doing. "Mr. and Mrs. Williams, your daughter has been working with an international criminal organization. The money she's been taking from your family has been funding serious crimes, including human trafficking, drug smuggling, and terrorist financing." My mother broke down completely. "That's impossible. Emma is just a confused young woman who made some bad choices. She's not a criminal mastermind." Agent Carson showed them the evidence. Bank records showing payments from criminal organizations. Recorded phone calls where Emma discussed her training in manipulation techniques. Social media messages, where she bragged about how easy it was to fool her stupid family into giving her money. My father sat in stunned silence as he realized that Emma had been playing a role for years. The struggling daughter who needed financial help, the victim of mental health issues who threatened suicide, the loving sister who just wanted family support. None of it was real. "Emma's therapist has contacted us," Agent Carson continued. "She wants you to know that Emma has been lying during her therapy sessions too. She's been using the sessions to practice her manipulation techniques and get professional validation for her victim narrative." That's when Agent Carson delivered the most shocking news. French authorities moved to arrest Emma this morning, but she wasn't at her hotel. She had checked out 3 days ago without telling anyone where she was going. "What do you mean she's missing?" my mother asked. Emma discovered that law enforcement was closing in on her criminal associates. She attempted to flee to a non-extradition country, but she was arrested at Charles de Gaulle Airport with fake identification documents and evidence of planning a permanent disappearance. Agent Carson showed us video footage from airport security cameras. Emma was being led away in handcuffs, surrounded by French police officers. She no longer looked like the carefree tourist from her social media posts. She looked like exactly what she was, a criminal who had been caught. Her criminal associates abandoned her as soon as they realized she had attracted law enforcement attention. Emma is currently in a French jail, and she's finally understanding the consequences of her actions. The video call that Agent Carson arranged with the French detention facility was devastating. Emma appeared on screen wearing a jail uniform, looking exhausted and terrified. The confident, manipulative person who had been taunting me just days earlier was gone. "Mom? Dad? Dexter? Please help me. I'm so sorry. I didn't know it would end up like this. I thought I was just borrowing money and having fun. I didn't know these people were serious criminals." For the first time in years, Emma was telling the truth. She was scared, alone, and finally facing real consequences for her actions. The elaborate fantasy life she had been living was over, and reality was much harsher than she had ever imagined. "Emma," Agent Carson said firmly, "you have one opportunity to cooperate with our investigation and help us arrest the other members of this criminal network. If you provide useful information, we can work with prosecutors to reduce your sentence." Emma started crying. Real tears this time, not the manipulative tears she had used to control our family for years. "I'll tell you everything I know. I'll help you catch them. I just want to come home and try to make this right." 6 months later, I sat in a federal courthouse in Cleveland, watching Emma accept a plea bargain for her crimes. She had been extradited back to the United States and faced federal charges for identity theft, wire fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. Emma's cooperation with the FBI investigation had been crucial in arresting 12 other members of the international fraud network. Her detailed information about their recruitment methods, training techniques, and financial operations helped law enforcement shut down a criminal enterprise that had stolen over $75 million from American families. As part of her plea agreement, Emma received a 7-year federal prison sentence, 5 years of supervised probation, and was ordered to pay full restitution to all victims. The judge made it clear that her cooperation had saved her from a much longer sentence, but that the severity of her crimes required significant punishment. "Miss Williams," the judge said during sentencing, "you systematically betrayed the trust of your family members and participated in an international criminal conspiracy that caused devastating harm to hundreds of innocent people. While your cooperation has been valuable, you must face the consequences of your choices." All of the fraudulent charges on my credit card were reversed within 90 days of Emma's arrest. The credit card companies and banks worked with federal investigators to restore my financial standing and repair my credit score. The house I had dreamed of buying was still available, and I was able to purchase it using the settlement money from the Criminal Restitution Fund. My parents had a much harder road to recovery. They had to attend court-ordered family therapy to address their pattern of enabling Emma's behavior. They sold their house to pay off the second mortgage they had taken out for Emma's trip, but they were able to move into a smaller home without any debt. The therapy sessions were difficult, but ultimately healing. My parents had to confront years of manipulation and acknowledge how their fear of losing Emma had made them vulnerable to her schemes. They learned to set boundaries and recognize the difference between helping someone and enabling destructive behavior. "We thought we were protecting Emma by covering for her mistakes," my mother said during one therapy session, "but we were actually making it easier for her to hurt herself and other people." My father had to face the reality that his attempts to shield Emma from consequences had contributed to her escalation into serious criminal behavior. If we had called the police the first time Emma stole money, she might have gotten the help she needed before it went this far, he admitted. The extended family members who had initially blamed me for destroying the family slowly came to understand what had really happened. When the FBI investigation revealed the full scope of Emma's crimes and her involvement with international criminals, even her strongest supporters had to acknowledge that I had done the right thing by reporting her activities. Emma began serving her sentence at a federal women's prison in Ohio. For the first time in years, she was required to participate in genuine therapy, financial literacy education, and job training programs. Without access to manipulation or criminal schemes, she had to face the reality of who she had become and what she had done to our family. Her letters from prison showed genuine remorse and self-reflection that I had never seen from her before. She stopped making excuses and started taking responsibility for her actions. "Dexter, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, and I'm not asking for it," she wrote in one letter. "I want you to know that I understand what I did was wrong. Not just wrong because I got caught, but wrong because I hurt people I loved for no good reason except my own selfishness and greed." 2 years into her sentence, Emma had become a model prisoner. She completed her GED, learned accounting skills, and began participating in programs to help other inmates avoid financial crimes after their release. She also began making restitution payments from her prison job, sending $50 a month toward the massive debt she owed. When our family was finally able to visit Emma in prison, the reunion was emotional but healthy. Emma had learned to communicate honestly instead of manipulating people's emotions. She asked about our lives without trying to guilt us into helping her. She accepted responsibility for her choices without blaming others or making excuses. "I spent so many years thinking that everyone else owed me something," she told us during that visit. "I convinced myself that I was a victim who deserved to have nice things, even if I had to steal them." It took going to prison to realize that nobody owed me anything and that the only person responsible for my life was me. My parents and I began rebuilding our relationship on a foundation of honesty and accountability. They learned to support Emma's genuine recovery efforts without enabling her manipulation. I learned to forgive them for their mistakes, while maintaining clear boundaries about what I would and wouldn't tolerate in the future. The house I purchased with the settlement money became a gathering place for family holidays and celebrations. But now our family interactions were based on mutual respect and honest communication rather than guilt, manipulation, and fear. Emma's scheduled release date is still 3 years away, but she's already planning for a responsible reintegration into society. She's been accepted into a halfway house program that will help her find legitimate employment and housing. She's also committed to continuing therapy and attending financial management classes. The fraud network that Emma had been part of was completely dismantled by federal investigators. Emma's testimony helped convict the leaders of the organization, who received prison sentences of 20 to 30 years. The investigation also led to the recovery of millions of dollars in stolen assets that were returned to victims. Detective Martinez told me that Emma's case had become a training example for other law enforcement agencies dealing with family-based financial fraud. The techniques Emma had learned from professional criminals were being used to help other families recognize and resist manipulation. Your decision to report Emma's crimes probably saved dozens of other families from going through what you experienced, Detective Martinez explained. These criminal organizations depend on family loyalty and shame to protect them from law enforcement. When you refuse to be manipulated by those emotions, you helped break the cycle. The most important lesson I learned from this experience was that true family love sometimes requires making difficult choices that feel cruel in the moment but are actually protective in the long term. Enabling destructive behavior isn't kindness, it's participation in someone's downfall. Emma's crimes could have destroyed our family permanently if we had continued to cover for her mistakes and protect her from consequences. By choosing accountability over comfort, we gave Emma the opportunity to face her problems honestly and begin genuine recovery. Family bonds built on truth and mutual respect are stronger than relationships built on manipulation and fear. The family we've rebuilt after Emma's conviction is healthier and more honest than the family we had before her crimes were exposed. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to be manipulated by them, even when they're family. Real strength comes from choosing justice over comfort, even when it means temporary pain and difficult conversations. Have you ever faced a situation where someone close to you was taking advantage of your trust? How did you handle the balance between loyalty and self-protection? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more real-life stories about family, relationships, and personal growth. And please share this video with anyone who might benefit from hearing about the importance of setting boundaries with manipulative family members. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps you navigate any difficult family situations you might be facing. Remember that choosing accountability isn't betrayal. It's often the most loving choice you can make.